Business, a person's occupation, profession, or trade. Connection, a relationship in which a person or idea is linked or associated with something else. Welcome to Business Connection. Each week, our program will offer inspiration to navigate the business world. Information you can use to succeed in any field. And we will help you focus on your goals. Join us now for Business Connection with your host, B.C. Clark.
Hello, and welcome to the Business Connection. I'm your host, B.C. Clark. As you know, I interview business owners across the state and some of those that come in state as well. But today my guest is the tax queen, Miss Diva Mejias. Diva, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, BC. I'm really honored to be here with you today.
Well, you're doing so much, and I thought it was an opportune time to get you in because with small businesses, as you know, that's my yard, there's so much going on right now. And there's a lot of new people coming into the industry. And so we want to make sure that they understand about taxes. And, you know, you're the one. So let's talk a little bit. And first, give us a little bit of background and talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing right now. And then we're going to get into our talk about taxes because that's where you live.
Well, yeah, taxes, numbers tell stories.
Oh, sure, that's right.
And to me, I've always had a love of numbers because they do tell stories, and I have the ability to take those numbers and help small business owners understand what story those numbers tell them. Yes. So things that I'm doing now, everybody knows me as the tax lady. My name is Diva Mejias, and I've owned franchises in terms of taxes, and I've personally prepared thousands of tax returns throughout the years. Right now, what I'm focused on is I'm a certified tax advisor, Main Street certified tax advisor under the tutelage of Mark Koliv.
Oh, okay, so awesome.
So it's been an interesting ride. I'm able to not only help business owners understand their numbers, but also play the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Take a small business owner and tell me where you're at, what you want to do, what your goal is, and be like that quarterback in football that starts throwing, let's do this play, let's do that play. And, of course, you have to catch it. So
sure.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it.
That's right.
But if you're a small business owner, there's so much for you to know. Mm-hmm. A lot of people after the pandemic, they went ahead and started small businesses. And a lot of them just thought that going on the internet and creating, getting an SSN, an EIN, and creating their business, they hear from their friends. You've got to be an LLC. And then they say, okay, well, my friend said this is what I should do. Mm-hmm. But every business is different, and every person is different. So first of all, you really have to assess what it is you want to do in life. What is it that you have to offer the public? So what are your skills? What are your, what is it, if you want to sell something, what is it you want to sell? If you want to coach or you want to have personal development, what is it you're offering?
Right.
And then come together and come to grips with what entity am I going to form? Because just to form a business doesn't, what entity? Yeah. The IRS only recognizes certain entities. So the misconception is, I'll form an LLC and then I'll file an LLC tax. Well, I'm here to tell you, an LLC is not an entity. An LLC is a protection that you have for your business. So think of it as if you're going to war and I give you a shield and I tell you, okay, go to the war, take this shield, and arrows or bullets that come to you won't touch you personally. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what the LLC does.
That's
but
correct.
For filing taxes, the LLC is not an entity. So you're either a sole proprietor, you are either a partnership, or you're a corporation.
Right. That's correct.
Keeping that in mind, people hear about, the S Corp. I was told I should be an S Corp. Well, an S Corp is good, but not for everyone. Mm-hmm. So if you are, and let's say you are a sole proprietor, and even if you have the LLC designation next to you, that's fine. And your Schedule C, because that's where you put your revenues and your expenses, and you come up with your profit. If that profit goes up to over 30,000, let's say, the 30, 40, I like to say 30 to 40,000 more so, then you should consider probably going to an attorney if you need to, because I am not an attorney. I'm not giving any legal advice here. But then you should really consider changing your structure.
From the
And
entity
from
to
the
an
LLC
actual
to,
entity.
right, into the
S
S
corp.
corp. And the way you do that, of course, there's steps. You know, you do have to make an election with the IRS. You have to file certain forms, and this is what I'm saying. It's not, you can do it yourself, but you really should understand what you're doing before you do it. And the intent of what you're doing.
Right.
Because just because you're an S corp doesn't mean you're automatic. Well, I'm going to save everything. Well, you know, there are rules, and those who know the rules can play the game.
Right. That's right. It's like cards.
Right.
That's right. And if you don't know, then you put yourself in probably a bag that you don't really want to carry.
Right.
So it is important to understand the S corp. And a lot of people come into me and they'll say, "Well, I've been an LLC for so long, and I think I'm. You know, everybody says I should be an S corp by now." And so I asked how much are they making a year. Oh, I made 10,000 last year. And I said, well, and I always thought it was like 50. I said, well, and maybe 30. I think I always say 30 to 50, then it's probably time for you to look at that, and file, but understand what each of the things mean. And they don't want to do that. So they don't want to listen, I should say. But anyway, it's almost like, and I think it's really critical for people to understand that, because people say, well, if I'm an LLC, then I can pay myself. And I was like,
Well, when you're a sole proprietor and you are filing that Schedule C, that bottom line number, those are your wages.
That's your wages right there.
Self-employment tax on.
That's right.
It's 15.3%.
Yes.
Of that number.
That's right.
But when you're in the S corp, remember, you do have to be on payroll. So you're going to have that added expense of not only being on payroll, but paying the payroll taxes, the FICA, which
everything,
is
because you're like an employee,
your
that
Medicare, and your state tax.
Everything. All that comes out.
There's something that goes into that. But that's going to only be, as an employee, 7.65%. So your profit, you've already paid that. So you can really just do some distributions at that point. And there's a calculation to all that.
Right.
Take out some distributions that perhaps you don't have to pay the self-employment tax on, because you've already paid some on wages. But remember, the IRS is very astute to the fact that S corp owners are going to pull distributions. Now think of it as this, and my son has a good analogy. He takes a cup and he puts 10 pens in the cup. And then he says, you can only pull out of this cup 10 pence. You can't pull out any more. So when you have an S corp, you can only take distributions out of what you have in the business.
Right.
So you have to be aware that you have to track your basis in the business, and you have to be cognizant of the fact that you have to get paid as well, a reasonable salary, and that's to discretion, based on what your numbers are.
Right.
Because I do have some business owners, some S corp owners that maybe in the second quarter their cash flow is not there for them to take their regular salary, but then they catch up, and by the end of the year they've done it.
They can take it.
So just think about.
It's more than just saying I'm an S corp.
My friend said to do this.
Right. And not just to say I'm an S corp and not really understand what it is.
Right.
And don't ask for something like, my mother would always say, if we're asking something, have you ever tasted that before? No. So, well, how do you know you want it? Or how do you know you'll like it? Or how do you know you don't like it? So it's key to be educated on what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. Right. I agree. I thank you for that. Yes. So talk a little bit, because taxes are coming up. Is anything different this year for 24? Because I know they change every year, and I think people don't think to ask.
Well, the Tax Jobs Act, back when the Trump administration was there, we're not going to get political. It doesn't matter who you vote for or what.
We don't care.
That particular act is going to expire in 2025. So all of those tax cuts and benefits that we've been enjoying for the past couple of years will expire in 2025. So depending upon who's going to be in office, either they will extend them or they will cut them, or just because that administration put them there doesn't mean they're going to keep them there.
Right.
The only thing permanent that administration did was corporations. They got a permanent 21% tax rate. Okay. Now for all of us, let's say, even individuals. Okay. In 2025, the Tax Cuts Act will expire, and even something as your tax rate. You could be at, you right now, it's, I think the highest is 37%. That could go back up to 39%. For small business owners that are enjoying that 20% deduction of something called QBI, the Qualified Business Deduction, right? That is going to expire.
But
so
that didn't
you may
affect-
not have that after
Did that
2025.
affect all small businesses or just ones that were an entity?
That would if you're not a service business, you have to be a certain. There are certain categories that
Right.
that did not affect, but the majority it did. So now, if you've been enjoying, if you made $100,000 and you've been taking off that $20,000 and not paying taxes on it, and that expires, now you're going to be paying taxes on the whole $100,000.
whole $100,000,
So just certain things. For an individual out there, if you're just a W-2 employee, the child tax credit is expiring. We went up to like from 1,000, 2,000, and now the new administration, we don't know which
right.
two administrations is going to take it. The old one may keep it, may double it. The new one says they're going to expand it all the way up to 6,000. We just don't know. There's so much uncertainty.
Just talk,
But what
yeah.
we do know is this. We do know that October 15th, for those of you that file extensions, is coming up. And October 15th is very important for you to get that return in.
Yeah.
So if you haven't gotten it in, use these couple of days to kind of get your stuff together and get that
And
return
get that done in.
And then you only have I think yesterday was 13 weeks left till the end of the year before the new year starts. And now this whole year has to be wrapped up before April 15th
Right.
next year. So I always tell my clients, those that like football, when football season starts and you're watching the game, pull out that junk drawer, take out all those receipts, pull out those files, clean them all up while you're watching the game. You make something fun with something not
Not
pleasant,
so fun, yeah.
or less not pleasant.
Let's do something different.
Yeah.
And that's really important because I know that quite a few people put in extensions. So just remember, October 15th is the deadline to make sure that you get those taken care of so that you're not in a bad situation.
Right.
After that.
Especially if you are a business owner and you filed your extension, okay? For Schedule C, that would just be your regular. That just comes into your 1040. Of course, if you've been an S corp, your extension passed. That was September 15th. So be cognizant of those dates as well. It's
That's
very
important.
It's also important if you are an employer to make sure that your payroll taxes that they get filed, because if you really want to get in trouble, mess with payroll taxes, because it's not your money. It's not your money. It's money that you have you've taken from your employees,
yes.
and they have entrusted you to send it into the federal government. So if you really want to get in trouble, play around with that.
Yeah, no, don't play around with that because that's not what you want to do. That once you get in that, it's hard to get out. So just do the right. It's so easy to do the right thing, right?
I know.
Just file the taxes when you need to. If you're taking and setting aside the employee taxes, please file them. Don't get stuck and have all that stuff going on. Just keep it simple. It's enough craziness out there going on, right? I want to talk a little bit also about, a lot of times there has been so much going on and so many women have been, kind of struggling right now. And as you know, I have the Metro Ohio Women's Business Center, but I love the fact that, you have something called Embodying Your Identity. That is so awesome. The whole group is awesome. So if you guys haven't jumped on the Facebook of Embodying Your Identity, it is amazing. The women are so honest and sharing information. And so if you feel like you're stuck in a situation, if you're stuck in your business, if you're stuck anywhere, there's something out there for you. So go out and check it out. In fact, there is a Paint and Twist that's coming up. And what's the day? October 11th?
October the 11th, yeah.
October 11th. You can go online and it's the embodying.
Painting with a twist.
Huh?
Painting with a twist.
Painting with a twist. It's being put on by Latinas Unidas Women's Organization, who are my sisters. And also, you can go and sign up for that. I believe it's the October 11th, and what's the name of the place in Greyhawk?
It is called Painting with a Twist.
Painting with a Twist, October 11th. If you can't find the link, go to the Facebook page called Embodying Your Identity. There's some great information out there. I just wanted to get that plug.
And also, just find me on Facebook.
Yeah,
it's
Diva,
Diva, D-I-V-A.
Diva's 2 cents.
I have a couple of identities, and
Yes.
that's why I actually wrote a book recently called Embodying Your Identity.
And is
I
that
it's on
available?
Amazon?
Sorry. Okay, it's on selling out.
It's selling on Amazon.
Embodying Your Identity.
By yours truly, Diva Mejias. And that just takes you through about 10 chapters of how did I get from where I am to now. Because when I grew up very, very poor. I grew up in what some people call the ghetto in New York, okay? So
Is the barrio and the ghetto the same?
the barrio
Okay.
and the ghetto, the barrio. It's like, well, not necessarily the ghetto, but I did grow up in the ghetto.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to eat when I was little. My father was a Rolling Stone back then, back in the 50s, where, wherever he laid his hat was his home. So he had a different family other than ours. So we were very, very poor. And at least 5 out of the 7 days a week, all I ate was spaghetti and meatballs and white rice. And I really didn't even know they didn't go together. But I always swore I would cry and I would pray and I would always say, BC, I will never be hungry again. And that's what really took me into trajectory of numbers and understanding that generational wealth can be broken.
Yes.
If you put effort into
That
it.
curse.
If you're
Yeah.
right.
That
if
poverty
you put
curse.
effort into it and you say, no, this is not going to happen to me, to my family. So thank goodness. And that's what that book does, just takes you through. And after every chapter, I have a little reflection. If I did a chapter on my mother, a reflection on you and your mother. If I chapter on my father, you and your father. So you really need to, and if you want the book and you can't buy it on Amazon, reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to give you a copy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and the thing about it is that when you talk about the reflection, I think a lot of people, we go through life, we do what we have to do to get to where we're trying to go. And sometimes it takes us a long time to get to where we want to be because we don't always know where we want to go, and sometimes we don't know who we are. And so when I think of embodying your identity, I think a lot of us run from it because we're afraid we don't know what that identity is supposed to be.
Well, more importantly, you get stuck.
You do.
You get stuck in identity.
Yes.
You have a job. Let's say, for example, you get a job and you have a title, and you wear that title proudly for many years. And then all of a sudden, that job is no longer there, and that title is gone. And who are you?
Yes.
You've never really found
Or if
yourself.
you were married and then for years and
then
then all of a
you're
sudden you're divorced and now you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? Because I've always been that person. And what I don't like about the military, if you're a military wife, when you go in the military, you have nothing. Your name is not even you don't even use your social security number. It's their social security number. It's so you feel really you feel like you don't have ownership. And so you do have to find yourself sometimes. And so I always tell people, take a moment to discover who you are. Because a lot of times we run from that because we're caretakers. Women are automatic caretakers, usually. You find some that aren't, but mostly women, that's what we do. That's kind of how we were made. But we have to understand also that we have an identity that has things that should happen with that identity. Our purpose should be coming out. We should be working in that purpose. And a lot of times if we don't go and search for it, we can't find it. So we have to stop sometimes and say, who am I?
Well, you say something very interesting, especially for the viewers, okay?
Yeah.
If you really want to search who you are and what your passion is, sit down one day and just write. Write everything that comes to your mind. I want to do this, what you wanted to do, what you've aspired to do, who you think you are, because who you think you are and who people perceive you are is way different than who you truly are. So I wrote the book because people know me as the text lady. I'm also an insurance agent.
That's right.
I'm also a realtor. I'm
also an author.
Yeah, I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. I'm going to be 50 years married to the same guy. So that should be one identity. But I'm also a grandmother. So I mean, which one of these identities am I identifying at the moment? As opposed to just wearing an identity and saying, this is me and this is who I am and nobody can touch it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just sit down one day, write everything down, all your aspirations, everything. It doesn't matter if it's chicken scratch. And then put it away. And the next day, just read it. You'd be surprised. Common themes keep coming up.
Yep.
So eventually, like when I did that exercise, I started looking and said, wow, I keep focusing back on numbers. I keep focusing back on helping the community.
Yep.
I keep focusing back on small business owners.
Yep.
So that's where you find that's where the passion that you have hits you, where you can do anything. If money wasn't an object, what would you be doing?
What would you be doing?
What would you be doing if money was not an object at all? You didn't have to worry about that. That's your passion.
That's right.
And that's what, and then another thing is, this is where you are. So write down, this is my current situation. And one thing that folks kind of shy away from is personal debt. A lot of people shy from that because, first of all, when you're in personal debt, it's embarrassing. At least you think it's embarrassing, although nobody can embarrass you unless you let them.
Right.
You don't want to share it with anybody because I have husbands who come to me who tell me, don't tell my wife I owe this, or wives that come to me and tell me, please don't tell my husband I gambled all that money. So, I mean, it's a personal thing, but you know who you are and you know what you're doing. So just write down everything you owe. I owe this card, I owe that card, and come up with a list of everything you owe so that you can come up with a plan to get out of it.
Yes.
And then if at the end of the day you can't get out of it, there are avenues for you to take that can help you. And a lot of people don't realize that. Even with the IRS, if you owe the IRS and you can't pay them, there are avenues. Don't ignore them.
Yeah.
Don't wait till they garnish your pay for the rest of your life.
Right. Yes.
There are different avenues. So
You can
there's
take.
tax resolution solutions that you can get.
That you can get into. I think then when you talked about writing it down, I remember, and I was age 40 at the time, because I had done a lot of things. I mean, I was running from business. Because when I was in high school, my father started a gas station. I was in 9th grade, and he said, you're gonna do the books. And I said, you know that I don't like math, right? And he was like, yes. I said, you know I'm not good at it, right? He said, yes. I said, and you want me to do the books? And he said, yes. And I said, and you feel like this is gonna be good for you? And I was just livid. I hated it. Because I couldn't go to bed until I got the thing, and so I ran. But what kept coming to me was business, was helping people. And after like almost 30 years in corporate America doing similar stuff, I realized that there was a call in my life to work with women. And I started at the Metro Women's Business Center. But that small business thing, when I started in 2003 with 2 other partners, it was just there. And then the speech, the speech just came around it. And then I started going to all kinds of, webinars and this is back in the day when there wasn't a whole lot. I was in manuals reading about business. And I'm a SCORE counselor. So I really got deeper into how we can help small businesses. So I think that it's just what you said. When you write things down and you see, it's like, man, I never wanted to do business, but it was always in my spirit. And so now it's in my thought, my sleep. I get up thinking about how I can help someone in business. You know what I mean? So, and you say embodying your identity. You will have multiple identities. And I do believe that in our purpose, there's seasons. So in one season of my life, I was an IT manager for, years. On another season, I worked with women and grew that. Now, and for the last 20-some years, I've been working with business owners. So we have identities. Don't mean that I'm not being a wife because I'm not divorced. I'm not being a mother because I still have children. You know what I mean? You still have those identities. Those are what you carry with you. Those are part of who your whole makeup is. And because of all those things, it makes you good at what you do when you're serving the community, when you're serving other people. I used to be a servant leader. I'm still a servant leader, but I'm more out of that and being able to serve the community, but understand that in business, there's things you have to put in place.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
And don't get stuck.
And don't get stuck. That's
in
right.
Any,
Keep moving.
Any
Keep moving.
identity, right? Keep moving, because even a worm, if you look at the worm, as slow as it goes,
Yes.
if you ignore it, by the end of the day, it's going to be at the end of the room.
Yes.
So, if you're here and you want to be here in your business or even in life, figure out what's going to get you there.
Right.
And not only what's going to get you there, but who's going to help you get there.
And how?
And how.
Yes, that's important. And don't be afraid to ask questions. It's, this is what and look, it's not prideful to not know something and don't get the answer.
Right.
For me, I dig until I get the answer. So if you are, even if you don't have money to do something, call, because you never know. Someone may say, well, you know what? Why don't we come and let's talk about it? Because sometimes when you sit with a person who may have gone through what you're trying to go through or getting ready to go through, they may give you some tips or some nuggets that will help you get past that. So please don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right. And also, don't get into this trap. Since the pandemic, you go on the internet and you see this guru is in front of this car and they bought this car and they're making it, and you need to get into this program and that program. And I tell you, from someone as myself, and I have the proof, I have spent thousands of dollars in different mentoring programs, different coaching programs, different this program and that program and that program. And then bottom line is, you've got to really understand what it is you're looking for.
That's right.
Okay? Before you go giving your hard-earned money to different programs that don't get you to where you
don't get you
want.
Right. Because and I think that this is another thing too. Stop trying to jump online to go somewhere. What's local? What is local? That you can, what program you can get into until you can get to a point where you can go to those higher price ones. And then they have all kinds of things out there, so you have to watch these traps. Oh, if you want to take this class for $5,000, here is a program. You can go to this link and they'll let you take this class. They'll pay for it for you, and then you pay them over X amount of time. Watch it, because those things are out there. And people say, oh, yeah, I can get the class done, and then I can just pay. Right? But then you're stuck into some interest-bearing thing. Diva, you've been here, and I thank you so much, because all the stuff that you've talked about today has been critical to our success, whether we are a stay-home person or whether we have a business. But give one little tip that people can walk away from today, because they heard a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll give you a tip. Numbers tell stories. If from an individual standpoint, know your numbers, meaning know what your revenues are, know what your expenses are each and every month. Don't let somebody else drive that car with your finances in the trunk.
Right.
You be the driver of that. And if you're a business owner, even more so.
Yes.
You be the captain of your ship.
Yep. Thank you guys for all joining us today. Diva Mejias, the tax lady, Diva's 2 cents, embodying your identity. Check her out. Thank you, Diva.
Thank you so much, DC. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
We'll see you next time.